When someone asks about your childhood, do you ever just freeze? It is not necessarily because it was a horror movie, it is because the answer isn't quite there. Somewhere between the age of 7 and 17, you skipped about 10 chapters. You went from learning to tie your shoes to managing your parents' emotional stability. You likely don't remember playing much. You remember working, not at a job, but the work of reading the room, the work of predicting the future, the work of making sure everyone else was okay so that you could be okay. Society has a very pretty name for this. They call you an old soul. They say, wow, you are so mature for your age. But let's be honest, that wasn't maturity. That was survival. There is a specific psychological term for what happened to you, but the clinical definition doesn't capture the feeling. The feeling is weight. The feeling is being a structural pillar in a house that was shaking. You were drafted into a war you didn't sign up for. You became a general before you even learned how to be a private. And the reason you are watching this video today isn't because you are broken. It is because the war ended 20 years ago, but nobody told your nervous system. You are still walking around in full body armor, sitting at a peaceful dinner table scanning for threats that aren't there. Today we are going to decode the 3 specific signs that you grew up too fast and exactly how that rewired your brain to reject rest, fear, intimacy, and obsess over country. Let's look at the first major sign. You possess what psychologists call hypervigilance, but I prefer to call it high-definition empathy. Most people watch life in standard definition. You watch it in 4K resolution with the volume turned up to maximum. You don't just walk into a room, you scan it. You can tell your mother is upset just by how she places a coffee cup on the table. You know your partner is stressed by the tiny change in their breathing pattern. This sounds like a superpower, and in some ways it is, but the origin is painful. When you were small, your safety depended on predicting the emotional weather of the adults around you. If you could predict the storm, you could prepare for it. You could fix it. So, your brain's amygdala, the alarm center, grew larger and more sensitive. It learned that relaxing is dangerous because if you relax, you might miss a signal, and missing a signal used to mean chaos. This brings us to the second sign, and this is the one that destroys relationships. It is called pathological independence. You likely struggle to ask for help. In fact, the very idea of needing someone makes you physically nauseous. When you get sick, you don't tell anyone. When you are overwhelmed, you isolate yourself. You have convinced yourself that you prefer to do things alone because it's just faster. That is a lie you tell yourself. The truth is, you do things alone because you learned that having needs makes you a burden. In your childhood ecosystem, there was no space for your needs. The emotional budget of the house was already spent on someone else, maybe a struggling parent, a sick sibling, or a volatile marriage. You learned a brutal equation, my needs equal stress for others, so you became the low-maintenance child. The easy one. The one who never complained. But here is the biological cost. Humans are a social species. We are designed to co-regulate. When we are stressed, we are supposed to reach out. You learn to reach in. You swallow your stress. You metabolize your pain alone. And eventually your body keeps the score. This is why you might suffer from unexplainable headaches, chronic fatigue, or gut issues. It is the physical weight of 20 years of silence. You might look at this history and label yourself as damaged. That is the old narrative talking. Let's flip the script and look at the third sign, which reveals your hidden strength. You are what I call a crisis architect. Because you grew up managing chaos, you are exceptionally good when the world is actually on fire. When everyone else is panicking, your heart rate actually goes down. You enter the zone. You know exactly what to do. You know exactly what to say. This is why so many parentified children become emergency room doctors, high-level executives, or crisis counselors. Your brain is a high-performance engine built for navigating difficult terrain. The problem isn't the engine. The problem is that you are driving a Formula One car in a school zone. You are living a peaceful adult life with a brain built for combat. This explains the strange phenomenon of self-sabotage. When things are too quiet, your brain gets suspicious. Silence used to mean the calm before the storm. It meant danger was accumulating in the other room. So, unconsciously, you might pick a fight with a partner who loves you. You might procrastinate on a project until the deadline is terrifyingly close. You create chaos because chaos feels like home. Chaos feels safe because you know how to navigate it. Peace feels like a trap. Recognizing this mechanism is your turning point. You do not need to destroy who you are. You possess a resilience that most people cannot fathom. You have a capacity for leadership and empathy that is instinctual. The goal isn't to remove these traits. The goal is to recognize that they are tools, not a lifestyle. So how do we tell the general that the war is over? How do you lay down the heavy armor you have been wearing for decades without feeling completely naked and exposed? It does not happen overnight. You cannot simply think your way out of this because this isn't a logic problem. It is a nervous system problem. Your body is addicted to the cortisol of doing. It needs to learn the safety of being. Here is your actionable micro step for this week. I call it the uncomfortable pause. The next time you feel that familiar urge to jump in and fix something, whether it is a dirty dish in the sink, a silence in a conversation, or a friend's bad mood, I want you to freeze. Do not act, not for 5 seconds. Feel the anxiety rising in your chest. Feel the voice screaming that if you don't fix this, everything will fall apart. And then watch as the world does not end. Watch as the dish sits there. Watch as the friend sighs and handles their own emotion. You need to gather evidence that you are safe even when you are not useful. You need to prove to your amygdala that your worth is not a rental payment you make by solving problems. You were a magnificent child who carried a heavy mountain, but you have reached the top. You can put the mountain down now. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to be messy. You are allowed to be the one who needs holding. Remember, you are not a project that needs to be fixed. You are simply a person who learned to survive now, learning how to live.